And we're live. It says we are. Are you alive? I'm alive. I think I'm alive. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is your Sensei Al Bob coming to you on your Dreamy Dreamland channel on YouTube. And it's all about the Benjamins, you know. So war is all about the Benjamins. Business is all about the Benjamins. I thought I poked myself in the eye in my sleep. I had a dream about it. Anyway. So yes, we're gonna talk about money, and we didn't always have money. And money was developed as a just a tool. Like if I had grain and I wanted to store it in your silo, I would basically put it there, and then when I wanted it back, you would get to keep part of it, right? And that was bartering, kind of, right? But then things got more complicated. And so we created money. So you could put money, put it under your bed or in a bank or, invest it in something. And then we got usury, right? You give me money, I charge you for holding on to it, and I give it back to you. And that costs a lot of money. I borrow money. It costs even more money. But if I give you my money and just leave it there, you give me very little money. And governments and kings and religions use this to create power, right? And that's what we pretty much had wars about. How much money you could get, because if you could get more money, you could get more armies, and then you could have more power, and that's what we got today, right? And look at the United States. It spends more money on its military than all the rest of the world combined, pretty much. Russia spent last year $60 billion on its military. We spent $1.2 trillion. It's a lot more money. We're all up about China. It has like one little postage stamp aircraft carrier that really isn't an aircraft carrier. It can't project light. We have thousands of bases around the world where we have, people. And basically what's happening to our military, it's being, pretty much since 1947, it became industrialized, the military industrial complex. And right now it's become commercialized, and our military are becoming mercenaries, And Gil Scott Heron has a really great song about that. Military is, becoming, it's all about the Benjamins, right? Hey, Jenny Pooh. GM Sensei Oil. Sensei? Maybe that could be my new merc. My merch. My swag. Anyway, the Bank of England and the City of England, is an authority unto itself. It has nothing to do with the government. Our Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the federal government. Federal Express has more to do with the government than the Federal Reserve. It's a privately owned stock-held corporation, that it's all owned, right? And wars and famines and pestilence. Now we have this new coronavirus, con V19, right? Con, it's a con, right? And it seems to be a bioengineered weapon. Excellent new place to visit at Boiling Waters last night. Floating architecture is awesome. Yep. I think I told you the story about when I was a camp counselor. The thing we did to bring our campers together, we used to do bonfires on the lake. We would, have 55-gallon drums. We would put wood across them and then build a big stack of wood and douse it in gasoline and carry it out into the middle of the lake and set it on fire. And we'd all be up there in canoes with big long sticks making s'mores on the lake. It was really pretty, especially from off site. You'd see this gigantic burning bonfire on the lake. It was quite nice. But what I'm seeing, and again, don't believe a word I'm saying. I'm just your griot sensei Bob. The coronavirus was engineered, right? It was initially, its foundation was created in Canada, in the West Coast, in a military biolab, and then it was, mailed to China, where it went to a um, bio-military lab in the city that the virus broke out in. Smokies, yep. And so Jane, anyway, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about today, the Benjamins, right? And so the interesting thing about the coronavirus in China, like I said, a good portion of it was engineered, and you can tell because it's an RNA strand, and when you look at it, you can see because when you use CRISPR, when you cut out chunks of the code and put something else in them, it leaves little boundaries that are very obvious. So that the novel coronavirus is, when people have looked at it, have said, look at this telltale sign of CRISPR. And the things that they find in it are elements of the AIDS virus and other bat coronaviruses, and also Ebola. And so that's why this thing is a very tricky virus and why it's spreading so quickly and not burning itself out. All those other viruses that were dangerous and virulent, but had things that kept it from really taking off, they re-engineered so it will take off. Yeah, and and that Canadian biolab, if you follow the news like I do, about a year and a half ago, they got into trouble for sending these biological things to China, right? And that was in the news, but it came and went, and nothing changed. They didn't fix any laws to really even punish those guys. They just came out. Somebody found out about it and brought it out in the media, and it kind of was a blip, and then it went away. And one of the reasons why China had a real, there was a doctor in China who was an eye doctor, and he saw that there was something going on, and he wasn't, a virologist, he wasn't, a microbiologist, but he was an eye doctor. And one of the ways that this transmission is, you get it on your hands, you rub your eyes, and you're off to the races. And so he was seeing something, and he brought it to his neighborhood Wuhan, health department, and they arrested him, right, and gave him a really hard time. And he was put in a jail where other people who were saying that they had the symptoms of something, so he was exposed that way, and he died relatively quickly. And other people who were trying to raise, the warning about this, they were harassed and arrested. And China actually had 17 weeks where they knew this was going on. They knew this was a real problem. They saw in people showing up in hospitals, and they could have quarantined, Wuhan right then and there. But the big New Year's holiday was up, and they didn't want to disturb that or lose any money because they make billions in a matter of weeks for that holiday. And so they ignored it and let 5 million people leave Hunan, right? And 3 days before they started to clamp down on Hunan, they let 5 million people uh, leave. And that spread it all over China and all over Asia because the Chinese have a lot of money and they go to, all these other, Vietnam and all these other places for vacationing and come to America. And it's very communable. So, there was bus drivers in England and other places that, didn't go to China, but some tourists got on their bus and they got it. So it's already out there, right? And the WHO it was dragging its feet, and other entities are dragging its feet. So it's pretty obvious that there probably is a cure for this already. Because when you engineer something, one of the major things you do is not only make it, life threatening and virulent, you make sure that you don't get it and you can, so I'm sure there is a cure already, right? And again, don't believe anything I say. This is just a story, right? This is like, Grimm's fairy tale, and this is pretty grim. And no government ever has a catastrophe that they don't take advantage of, right? I mean, look at 9/11. Boy, did they ever take advantage of that one. Whether they knew about it, whether they orchestrated it, or any of the above of those, I don't even go there. It's just what happened afterwards, right? So we're looking at probably very soon having a biological, Patriot Act, where, you've already kissed all your rights of the Constitution goodbye. Ooh, this one's going to really go after you because, it's one thing about being scared of terrorists, but it's another thing. Oh my God, I'm going to die. And all you have to do is really wash your hands. Don't keep 3 feet between you and 5 feet. Be safe. 5 feet between you and somebody else. That's all you got to do, right? So and so that's what's going on. And by mid-March, we will be able to see, even with the media lying to us, what's going on. And that's why we're having all this great distraction with Carrot Head and the Democratic Party and all the above. And I would say we will not have a presidential election. And part of this, they will lock down the country. Oh, we can't have an election. Too many people would get infected. Sorry. So that's, Carrot Head's going to be the last president, right? And after he is, lost his use, basically what we will have is he will have during the Super Bowl, what's her name had a costume malfunction. Well, Carrot Head will have a cheeseburger malfunction. He will try to stuff, a Big Mac in his mouth all at once, and he'll have a cheeseburger malfunction, and then we'll have Mikey Boy, buddy, good to see you. And Rhonda, not being told anything, Jane. And we never told anything, you know. So the real deal is that we have the technological fix for all of this, right? We, have the technological fix to live in a Star Wars utopian, right? Not just a dystopian, but a utopian society where everybody would have enough, right? Right now they're saying, oh, wow, we had to give another tax break to the trillionaires and cut everyone else's, entitlements. Well, Social Security ain't an entitlement. You paid for it. Medicare isn't an entitlement. You paid for it. And every other industrial country, um, has centralized medicine. I lived in Ireland. I remember one time I had a serious toothache. And I was in a little town. I saw I was walking through town, and there's, my head is throbbing, my face is out here, and there's this just tooth hanging. Oh, it must be a dentist. I walk in, and the girl behind the desk looks at me and goes, "Oh, wow, you got a problem, don't you?" And she goes, "Here, fill this out." And I put my name and kind of where I was staying, and that's about it, right? And so she goes, "Okay, would you like a cup of tea?" I said, "No." So she made me a cup of tea, and she goes, "Swish it around in your mouth, it'll feel better." So I did, and I drank my tea, and then she said, "Okay, come on in." And there's the doctor, and he took X-rays, and he said, "Oh, wow, you need a root canal." I said, "Rrr." So he did a root canal, and he also did a partial. He said, "The side of your tooth is totally cracked, so um, I'm actually going to do a root canal and then do a crown." So he did it all then and there. And I said, "Rrr." And I said, "Why don't you just pull it out?" And he goes, "Well, if I pull it out, then all your teeth will start to collapse around that hole. And, in a few years, you lose all your teeth. But if I do a root canal and do a crown, you'll get another 20 years out of these teeth." And he says, "Your teeth are really messed up." And I said, "Yep." He said, "People make fun of English teeth. Yours suck." And I said, "Rrr." And he goes, "Your mom must have really terrible teeth." I said, "Rrr." Anyway, so he did it, right? So did it right then and there. Took about 4 hours of everything. He looked at it, X-rayed it, then he did the root canal, and then he cut off the chunk of the tooth. And I went out in the waiting room, and he made a partial right there in his office, and he stuck it in there. And about 4 hours was all done. So I'm all done now. I can talk, and my head doesn't hurt, and they've given me antibiotics and painkillers, and I feel great. And I go to the lady, "So what do I owe you for that?" And she goes, "Nothing." I go, "What do you mean, nothing?" And she goes, "Well, we have, single payer healthcare. That includes dentistry, eye care, everything." Really? And this is when Ireland was a poor country. And that's why they had centralized medicine, because it would cost them way too much money. If they didn't take care of their people, and people got really sick. When people got really sick, that's when it gets expensive. And that's why healthcare in America is so expensive. It's because we don't take care of our people. We just wait till they get really sick, and then it costs a lot of money. And the system is made, the big pharma, the large corporations. Medicine in America used to be nonprofit, and then it kind of worked. And then the AMA, who started the AMA in America? A aluminum siding salesman who was a felon, the first president of the AMA, because his brother was a doctor, and he was out of jail and was selling aluminum siding, and he was making more money than his brother was a doctor, right? And so there's something wrong with this. Got teeth, yeah, 1.5 tooths. Yeah, that's me. I have no teeth. I just get gums. After they ripped them all out and everything healed up, gums are pretty strong. I can eat, and the only thing I can't do is like eat corn off the cob or eat an apple. I have to chop it up. Anyway, so that's about the Benjamins. And that's really, the Bank of England, the City of England, is like England went bankrupt, and the Bank of England rebranded itself, and basically moved. They lost all their empire, but they still had little things like Bahamas and Cayman Islands, and those places were backwater places where nothing was happening. And they moved all of their illegal banking there, and they set up trusts. And a trust is when you can put as much money into it and no one owns it, so it doesn't get taxed, right? So they made a big deal about a year or so ago that the Cayman Islands was, going to get on the same standard as other banks, and they would, give all the information about who had accounts in their banks, right? But that neglected trusts. So they could say, hey, we're totally honest. We're not, but all of the drug money, all the CIA money, all the money of terrorism and everything is going through the City of England's banks and its, protectorates and Cayman Islands and British Western, all the little things that they have left. And that's all in the trillions. They have hundreds of trillions, and that's why Ireland does kind of the same thing in a corporate sense, and that's why Google and Microsoft and Apple all have their corporate headquarters in Ireland because they don't pay any tax. Right? It's all about the Benjamins, and we are being commoditized, human beings, and that's what transhumanism is about: is to turn us into a commodity, and to control, your, Alexis gives us a frequency that if it's around you, if you got it in every room, it is like getting in your brain, right? And so I used to kind of watch things on my cell phone and fall asleep. I don't do that anymore, right? And the tablets and things, and that's why I try to not watch TV or be on this thing more than like 3 hours a day, give or take, right? And most of it I spend with you guys, can handle the truth. uh, so tonight, so a lot of people came to last night's thing about 8 o'clock. That's about what I'm going to do tonight's, and we did a guided meditation, and a lot of people enjoyed that and got into experiencing it. And I would like it if people would talk about their experience on the chat, but most didn't. There were a good 60 people looking at that, being part of that. And there were only maybe 7 who were on the chat, but so. Tonight, we're going to remote view the banking industry, right? We're going to see how it is, right? Right? And because I'm doing this, because there's this shrinking window of opportunity, because as the only reason why things are getting so harsh all so quickly is that the powers that shouldn't be in the hidden hand are losing control. They're just hanging on by their fingernails. And they are, being forced to. They no longer can control the, population. They're having to force, right? And so, fear is the greatest force. 9/11 was just a tool of fear. It allowed them to have the Patriot Act, it allowed them to put TSA to bully people in the airports and on all transportation. Bus station, trains, anything. TSA is all through the system. The only thing that kind of limits them is their personnel and the cost, right? So that's why they more or less advertise it. And the place that people they can corral the greatest is at airports, and that's why their presence is the greatest at airports. But I don't know if you've noticed, once TSA and 9/11 happened, along our interstates, they have made, there's always this little place where the policeman waits and see if you're speeding, or the policeman can, or an emergency vehicle can turn around instead of having to go 20 miles and go over the. So, like every 5 or 10 miles or so, there is a place where the authorities can turn around on the interstate. Well, they have widened these little things. That usually they were just wide enough for two cars. It's like a 2-lane road, but just between the interstate chunks. Well, now they've widened them to almost a football field, so helicopters and tanks can be placed there. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I noticed these things, and so it's obvious that some things stir, and the MDAA, and there's all kinds of things that, George W. passed, and person who, it's really interesting that seemingly the Democrats, when they're in power, they, you know, pump up the economy. The Republicans destroy it, and but when they pump up the economy, it's not so much for the public. It's for the banking and the industrialists. And it's for the plutocratic state, right? And they actually are the Democrats, the ones who go to war. FDR, Woodrow Wilson, um, you know Harry Truman with Korea, LBJ with you know Vietnam. Bill Clinton kind of set the ball rolling economically and militarily, And then the Republicans are like, skull and bones, and so they're the guys on the down low. You talk about, the deep state, and they cause the revolutions, they cause the assassinations, they cause all of that, but they're just two wings of the same fascist corporate plutocratic state, right? So it's coming to a head right now because in 2012 my calendar ended, so we stopped being the Piscean age and became the Aquarian age. Piscean age, we had 26,000 years of a small group of elites ruling the world with violence, and the Aquarian age is about sending your, the Benjamin isn't the most important, money isn't the most important thing. Most important thing is understanding your soul. And so that's why we've had this rollout of 5G and, social media and all of this, is because that's a, closest thing they can come to a Novocaine for your soul, right? And level 4 in Alberta, away to Wax or level 4 labs. Someone, yeah. I used to build those things, you know. So work for electric companies. I was the guy who was, good at, there some electricians drill hole and 2x4s and pull Romex and put it in a box and put a duplex there. As electrician is like working on something so it works, so machines and systems. And so I worked for this one company and built a lot of hospitals, which they're very complicated environments. And so that led me to, working on interesting other facilities because I got the experience in hospitals. Anyway, so these next 16 months are going to be quite interesting. And I am very positive because the more desperate the hidden hand gets, the more it shows its hand. And more people are going to realize the only way it can, you can't fight fire with fire. You'll have to, find something to extinguish it. And the only thing that can extinguish the fear of the hidden hand is love. Right? And that's why I keep telling them, hey, listen, hire me, as a consultant, let me assist you to work on a new virus, the virus of love's co-creation. And you can still stay in charge. You can still be the president. You can still, have all the money because it doesn't matter. You know, money doesn't matter. The Benjamin isn't the most important thing. And once love is the primary motivating factor, we will find that this planet is a planet of abundance and not one of scarcity, right? And we will find that the corporate structure that represents the exceptional doggy eat dog will become all our relations, right? That we um, care for and are empathetic to. And no longer will there be the other, right? So, listen, you guys can still be in charge. Just hire me to help you help everybody else, right? That's all it takes, right? And you still can have all the money, all the gold, all the Dreckle. It doesn't matter, you know. So, the who are those guys who went off to the Crusades, who had the big crosses on their white uniforms? They were the people who brought in the money. They're the ones who found all the stuff and gave it to the banks. Oh, it started all the Masonic and secret societies. Meaning they took the old way and kind of rebranded it into the Illuminati, basically. I always forget their names of those guys. Anyway, so it's 32 minutes, 27 seconds. It's almost 11 a.m. I haven't had breakfast yet. So I want you guys to think about, what can we do to manifest this new aesthetic of where love is substituting the Benjamin, right? Substituting money and fear. Now, money equals fear, right? Knights of the Templar, thank you, Rhonda. Yep, those guys, the Knights of the Templar. They kind of started this whole thing. I mean, it was already inherent in everything. They just rebranded it, right? And that's what has given us. And again, my my mentor and master of the of the other side, my Akasha K, who would talk to me through my channeling of my second wife, always said, hey, all things are as they should be. You think things are screwed up? Think end of times are coming? No. You're just going through, kindergarten, You guys, and, Bob's co-creation will give you as much time to be, an infantile, whatever it takes for you to grow up is fine. But you're not going anywhere. Not anytime soon. Even if you get out into space and fly around, it's, wherever we go, there you are, Positive creativity for breakfast. Yep, that's what I'm going to go have for breakfast. Not cereal. Positive creativity for breakfast. Yep. What is Shananam? To play on words, bud. Shana na ma na 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 ma na na shana na 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 na. Anyway, um, so that's kind of where it's at. That's kind of what after living 10 years the rich man's life and dying in a bowl of spaghetti. I well, it was actually pasta, not spaghetti. Bolognese. I had to become a homeless guy. Have nothing, right? And that gives you perspective. So that's why I'm doing this. That's much love. Looking really good, Bob. Yep, I'm hanging in there. And so I'm gonna go to breakfast now. And so at 8 p.m. I'm gonna come back on, and we will put our heads together and go into state. And so, did anybody, uh, Rhonda, Jane? I think you were at the chat, right? So, buddy, I like your little things there. Bunny, needle, chicken leg, green. I guess that's somebody who's got the flu and thumbs down. Yep, pretty much. And it's gonna look scary. By April, it's gonna look scary. Everyone's gonna freaking out. And even if you die, that's not a big deal. And I used to visualize lots of different things before I went to sleep, but now, well, I visualize that it's not, whatever happens, happens, and it'll be okay. And when I finally die, and get to go to Shambhala, which is just, like a bus station, it's just that you get to pick where you're going to go next, whereas if you let the wearing blend or karma take you to your next incarnation, you have no, I mean, you have karma to, give you a heads up, but other than that, you have no real control. But if you focus your life on serving love's co-creation and bringing forth empathy to all your relations, and that you embrace the other instead of rejecting it, these are the tasks and abilities that enable you to enlighten yourself, to become awake, not woke, like Warren. Boy, her name is War On, and that's, why the powers that be support her. All those Democrats are all pudding heads, and Bernie and Tassie Dabbard at least are trying to be authentic on who they are and what they want. They're still in the system, and Bernie, he's got, after the DNC took the presidency away from him with putting Hillary against Carrot Head, he should have been going on about it instead of, he just goes on about, healthcare for all, Medicare for all. No, Medicare for all is not what it is, because Medicare has co-payments. No, if you read his plan, man, it's soup to nuts. So it's not that. It's single payer. And he shouldn't call himself a socialist that's, working with the Democrats. No. There has to be a new party, like the People's Party. And that's why I'm thinking of this 501c3 Humanities Artist Trust International. It's got to be humans, right? And something we can trust. And the only thing that can be trusted is the artist, because the true artist, not the person who, becomes the famous, the Banksy or the, Andy Warhol. They started out as artists in first person, but then took the Benjamins. Now, it's okay to take some of the Benjamins, but to just sell yourself as a product, and that's what, Andy Warhol was kind of, that's why he did silk screens, and, he showed, famous people and Campbell soup cans. He was showing, hey, this is just a commodity. So That was okay, Andy, and that you took a lot of money for it, that's okay too, right? And the thing is that you stayed who you were. He was that shy boy from the Midwest, and he went to every party, but he still was Andy Warhol. He'd be sitting over in the corner taking pictures. And if people, and most people would go, "Oh, you're Andy Warhol," blah 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 blah, and he would just kind of be chagrined. But if you went over and said, "Hey, Eddie, how you doing? What's up?" you know, and then he'd say, "Well, what's up? What are you doing?" And you tell him, and then he's, "Oh, that's interesting." And then you talk about what was interesting. Meaning, he wasn't a recluse. He wasn't, a curmudgeon. He wasn't a jerk. He really was a pretty nice guy. He was just Andy Warhol. He never stopped. He didn't have to look cool. He was just him. The clothes he put on is the stuff he wanted to wear. And then it became cool and stylish, and then he made money off of that. I mean, he realized he could just be some poor little guy working in an advertisement place somewhere in the Midwest, or he could come to New York, have a plan and execute it, become pretty wealthy, have a nice life for what he lived, and what's interesting, he got shot, because the factory was open to anybody. When I went in there and rewired it for them, and they were shooting movies, and it was like Grand Central Station, people coming in and out. They didn't have anybody at the front door. It was an open door, and this woman came in and became, you know, fantasized about him, infatuated by him, and he didn't reject anybody. He was just Andy to everybody, and so because he didn't really, you know, fixate like she was, she shot him, right? And he went in, got the bullet taken out it, but it was, if he didn't get shot, he would have lived a lot longer. I think he lived another 30 or so years, but he probably would have lived another 50 years. And but in a lot of ways, I think he wanted to get shot because he understood. One time I remember, so I would go in there and I redid everything to a certain point, but I didn't have the time or effort. He paid me a lot of money for just fixing it so it wouldn't burn down, and then to replace it and make it work really well. But he had lots of people there. I said, "So let me take some of these because I don't want to go up in a ladder. I don't want to drill holes. I don't want to do this. So I show him how to run the pipe, how to do this, how to pull the wire. I'd be there when they pulled the wire so they'd screw it up. But, they were like my helpers. But he had, so I was in and out of that place, for about an 8-month period. That was my Andy period, and, when was that? Late 60s, 69, 70, 71. And in those times, I was other places. I went to North Carolina, right? I was trying to stay away from my draft board, and hanging out at Andy Warhol's was not, being on the down low. Because the FBI was watching that place. But, when he got shot, there were cops right around that could have stopped that woman. The FBI knew everybody was in there. Everything was, I came across bugs in that place, those guys were so paranoid, Jag or whoever had everyone bugged, and that's, but when it was an analog world, it was more difficult. But when we became a digital world and everyone had these little devices in their houses and homes and hands and on their body, that's where we got the surveillance state, where everything I say and do is put on, I keep telling you guys to put it on thumb drives and DVDs and save it for posterity. Well, the NSA has saved it all for posterity. Well, uh, good. I'm proud of you, buddy. All it does is it's all about baby steps. Just keep doing it. Anything that you just keep doing, you're going to become really good at. when so I have all these, bags of tricks, abilities. It's just that I kept doing stuff, meditating, being, esoteric or occult, being a healer, studying medicine and all its different component parts, dietary, everything else. It's just that it interests me, and I just kept doing it, And being an electrician, I've done it forever, since I was not, well, since I stuck a fork in the electric socket. Um, and art, being an artist, so I just keep doing this stuff, and I don't do it as a career because that's the best way to kill. Even my electric work, anything I made money, and there were a lot of things I made money at. I didn't view it as a career. It's just, hey, I like doing this, so I'll just keep doing it. And then people said, "Oh, do it for me, and I'll pay you money." And I said, "Fine, good." And same thing with my abilities at reading people and working with people. I do that every day. Go out to the supermarket. I do the same thing. But I you know, I was at a party. I met a lawyer. He was desperate. I said, "I think I can help you with that." And I did, and he was amazed. And he told all his other desperate lawyer friends, and they started calling me and offered me ridiculous. I didn't go, "Oh no, I can't take that." I said, "Sure, hey, you're really desperate. Pay me more." And I did not feel chagrin at all at taking rich people's money. Right? I just didn't turn it into a career. I didn't, get an office. I didn't, do all those things you do to start a business. I just worked 11 to 20 weeks a year on a project, and it would be there and then it would be gone. I mean, it wasn't a career, but they give me a lot of money. And I spent it. I had a good life. And then they gave me their tax accountants who showed me how, yeah, I had to pay taxes, but I could take a lot of stuff off. And if I started a business and had a career, I could take it all off. And I said, nah, I don't want to do that. Because I was making enough that I didn't have to worry about any of that. So I give Caesar what is Caesar's. Now I don't own anything, so Caesar can't really take anything. So, and the best way for Caesar to take something is for the hidden hand to, give me a call and hire me as a consultant. And I'd be glad to go back to that. Glad to, have them say, "Hey, we want to support your what you want to do. Here, let's give you a lot of money to start the Humanities Artist Trust International. Here, let's give you a lot of money to start the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate. Oh, let's give you a lot of money to, put you on the road, uh, publish your books, make you famous, But it wouldn't be for fame's sake. It was to be serving love's co-creation and to go around like a merry prankster and get as many people as I can involved and motivated to doing this." Is that a boo boo or just a shadow? See, that's the problem with shadows. You can't really see what's going on. That's what's the problem with incandescent light. You can't see what's going on. You can only see the shadow, and the shadow knows. Anyway, 48 minutes. Oh, 48 minutes and 48 seconds. Good time to split. I love you guys. I'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. And, around mid March, I'm going to be going, it's going to get warmer, and and my friend is nice enough to let me stay here. He's all better, really. I don't need to stay here anymore, but he's letting me stay here. And he's, moving his girlfriend in sooner rather than later. And, things are going to, hopefully go way better for him. So, and the other person who I'm staying at and taking care of on the other side of the holler, they're also better, right? And their places, and it's fun to stay. There is no internet, and you have to walk through piles of beer cans. I went by there the other day, yesterday. Actually, it was a beautiful day, so I went out and visited other folks just to see how they're doing. I've been helping, and I realized this is like if that person could transport their space to, an art gallery. They'd make, it's like the kind of installations they used to do in the 70s. It's really bizarre. So I'll take a few pictures of it and put it on the YouTube. But I really don't, um, around here, video any people or their lives because it's kind of, I don't want to say sad, but it would be an imposition on them, and they would never know it. But energetically, not a good idea. But to take a few pictures just to show you what the heck, I can do that, right? But to, advertise their lifestyle. Look at these poor, I hate those things. For 98 cents a day, we can help little Bobby, here, no, little Bobby gets half that, 98 cents. The organization takes 97.7 cents for themselves. And for, we have to, run the facility. It costs this much to put on that TV commercial and have that big fancy office and pay everyone's salary, So little Bobby Joe just gets, 0.3 cents. So I hate that. So I'm not going to do that. But just I went there, and the sun hit it just right. It was like a diamond. It was like, my God, and that's the holler. So I will take a little bit just to give you a taste of what Ozark poverty is kind of like. And it's not that bad. I mean, I was living there, it's okay. And that's why people kind of get used to it. But I remember last spring, Mamo, their matriarch, who was 58 years old, she looked like 140,000 years old, and she was only 58, and she died. She died of emphysema and cancer and this and that, and she was obese and starving to death at the same time. She was malnourished. The doctor, you're malnourished, but she weighed 300 pounds. So anyway, I started a garden in their because they had a garden. The grandma before Mamo was old school and had a garden. And back in the day when this place was the Garden of Eden. And so I kind of cleared the garbage out of it and I started growing vegetables. And when they came up, I started cooking them there. And I remember I made a salad and a stew. And my mama made a big pot of macaroni and cheese and hot dogs, right? And, store-bought coleslaw, which like, slimy crap in a plastic bag. Oh, and I had this, beautiful salad, and the kids were looking at the food and go, "What's that?" And I said, "Vegetables." And the girl goes, "What's that?" She never had a vegetable. No, what's a vegetable? So I gave her some salad, and her, Mamo's daughter's daughter, and they had like 5 generations of kids within 15 years, and so this woman who had these kids who were about 5 years old, and I was giving them the kid, I want something on video. Let me try them. And the mom said, "No, don't eat those. You won't like it." And I said, "How do you know they're not going to like it unless they try it?" "Oh, they won't like it. I don't like it. They won't like it." And these kids were, if mommy didn't like it, well, they wanted to try it. So I gave them a salad, and they were chewing on it. Well, this is kind of interesting. I don't dislike it. I never had anything like it, but I don't dislike it. And the stew I made, they liked the stew. It was actually had meat in it, and potatoes and carrots, and I cooked them down until they were like, Mamo said, "That looks like what they call it, whiskey." When you cook, because the old timers cook like me, they had one pot and they kept putting stuff in it and cooking it down, cooking it down. And then, they would can what was left over and stick it down in the basement and eat it in the winter. And that's kind of what I do. Anyway, so I was doing it last spring over at this household because Mamo took her first, she fell and broke her hip, and that was the end of her. Anyway, so because she couldn't get in her car and she couldn't drive down to buy cigarettes to smoke and she couldn't buy beer, and so she just kind of got miserable and started drinking whiskey because that could last a little while. Anyway, so I that spring I made food like that for a couple of weeks, and then I left. I kind of went on the road. I went to other places, and when I came back, the kids were like, "Oh, we missed your food," but we've gotten back to just eating, mac and cheese and drinking, Dr. Pepper, because I was making tea, not sweet tea, just tea, and not black tea, but herbal teas, right? Like raspberry and jasmine and daffodil. And I was making it because those things were not jasmine, but the fruits and the daffodils and all the other little plants that I can make tea from around here. I was making it for those kids, and they said, "Oh, I like this stuff." Anyway, so I'm gonna go have breakfast. Yep, so important. And what's really interesting, they say, "Oh, the inflation's not much." Heck, it isn't. If you buy real food, vegetables, proteins, cheese, eggs, those things are going. Eggs aren't, but milk, a gallon of milk is like $3 now. That's why they drink powdered milk. Anyway, so I'm gonna go have breakfast.